We are the anchors of Queer News Tonight, and this evening we discuss the queer headlines. Hotspots magazine returns with authentic inspiration, real moments, manna-flavored powered cocktails, effortless charcuterie hosting, and community-centered joy. Free copies available now.
Feiler uncovers Florida's secret Cold War campaign targeting Black activists and queer people, revealing how fear, repression, and unified resistance shape today's political battles.
Democrats release unseen photos from Epstein Island, revealing disturbing rooms and alleging withheld financial records that could expose broader accomplices.
Mamdani enters office with a sweeping pro-LGBTQ agenda, expanding protections, funding care, and establishing a sanctuary city supporting queer and trans New Yorkers.
Grindr supports a Republican age revocation bill creating standardized in-store checks, contrasting it with broader child safety proposals critics fear could enable censorship.
All this important LGBTQ plus news and more this evening on Queer News Tonight. Welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ daily news television show, broadcasting live and available on demand on your favorite streaming channels.
Analytics company vidIQ has certified the Queer News Tonight YouTube channel as the world's most popular LGBTQ streaming news show. Our queer stories have reached over 11 million views.
We are proud that Queer News Tonight has more YouTube subscribers than any other LGBTQ brand in Florida. We thank you for watching and supporting our voice in our rainbow family. There's no other news program in the LGBTQ world like Queer News Tonight.
It is Thursday, December 4th. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we will tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
You're watching Queer News Tonight, the world's first daily LGBTQ evening news show.
Welcome to the world's most important LGBTQ evening news show. Hotspots magazine, Happening Out television network, is a nonprofit 501c3 media company in the same model as PBS and NPR, but created for the LGBT community.
Our nonprofit mission is to support the 11 pillars of our community. We want to inform and educate the key issues of lesbian, trans, Latino, Black, healthcare, seniors, students, faith, social justice, business, and queer culture. Help us support our diverse community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ nonprofit media companies in America, Hotspots magazine and Happening Out television network. In 2025, our magazine is celebrating 40 years of the LGBTQ experience, and Queer News Tonight is celebrating our 5th anniversary with more than 11,000 LGBTQ television stories. We present South Florida's major LGBTQ events, including Pride Fort Lauderdale, Stonewall Pride, and Pride Fest. Our magazine events, television news, talk, and entertainment shows supports our mission to educate the LGBTQ and broader community.
In 2025, more than 100 community leaders will sit at this table and share their voice as our anchors. Together, we host the show to support the LGBT community. Let's meet this evening's anchors at Queer News Tonight. Let's welcome anchor Alex Morash. Alex has served as editor-in-chief of Options Magazine, media director of the National LGBTQ Task Force, and press secretary for the Florida Democratic Party. Welcome to the show, Alex. What's happening?
Thank you so much for having me, Larry. I can't wait to talk about all the wonderful stories we have today.
Let's welcome anchor Dr. Bobby Ewan, a world traveler and well-versed in global affairs. Bobby provides an international perspective on current events, a PhD in conflict resolution. Bobby is a certified civil and family mediator and the founder of BH Conflict Resolution Services. Welcome to the show, Bobby. How are you today?
Good. I've been struggling with website building today. Trying to update my website that hasn't gotten updated in a while. But you know, I need to go with the modern style and sensibilities.
That sounds exciting.
To survive on the web. Oh.
And of course, let's welcome tonight's lead anchor, Larry Farver. Larry has over 20 years of experience in human resources, acting, film, radio, TV, live events, parade float design, production, and casting. He's also a board member of the West Side Association. Larry, Santa sets sail, a floating holiday spectacle in Wilton Manors on December 10th. Tell me, what's happening out?
Sure, Alex. On Wednesday, December 10th, Santa Claus will trade his sleigh for a boat in the beloved Santa by the Sea tradition, unique to Broward County. Beginning at 5:30 p.m., Santa and his cheerful crew depart from the Collahatchee Park boat ramp to cruise the scenic canals of Wilton Manors, spreading holiday joy from the water. Spectators can wave from the shore or greet Santa in person before he launches. Boat owners are invited to join the parade by decorating their vessels and arriving 30 minutes early for lineup. For more details, check it out at wiltonmanors.gov. Well, guys, this is one of my favorite things about our city and area of Wilton Manors in the great Fort Lauderdale area. We have so many events, and there are times where I say, I can't be in 5 places at once, although we do have some commissioners and mayors who somehow pull that off.
Yeah, they
magically.
Teleport to locations.
Yeah, that's a good word. Absolutely. But I encourage you, if you can get there at that time, to check it out. It's magical. And as you can see in the illustration, it's a lot of fun. We also have some other things coming up on the calendar. We have the Christmas tree lighting on Wilton Drive on the 4th. So check these things out. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we also have a holiday concert at Mickle Park on Friday, December 19th. And that's something to check out. And it's dear to my heart because I also volunteer on the West Side Association, as some of our viewers know. And we'll be volunteering and running a concession stand which supports activities in the west side of Wilton Manors. Everyone's welcome no matter where you live. So hope we see you guys there.
It sounds like such a fun event. What do you think, Bobby?
I think it's fantastic. I mean, I'm not much of a holiday person, but so pardon me, but I would be interested in a few things here and there.
Right, and I just have to say, anyone, be it Saint Nick or any other person that wears all that in South Florida any time of year is a hero.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I know. How?
Queer News Tonight looks forward to seeing you at Santa's Set Sails, a floating holiday spectacular on December 10th.
I'm Larry Farver, and let's queer up gay culture. Hotspots magazine spotlights Les Misérables' triumphant return to Broward Center. Our Hotspots Happening Out LGBTQ lifestyle magazine Hotspots is back with features on the highly anticipated return of Les Misérables to the Broward Center December 16th through the 28th. Cameron McIntosh calls the production the phenomenon of Les Misérables, adding that, quote, no show in history has been able to continually reinvent itself and remain a contemporary musical, attracting generations of brilliant new talent. We are all thrilled to be bringing her back home to you, end quote. This legendary musical, set in 19th century France, brings iconic songs like I Dreamed a Dream, On My Own, and Do You Hear the People Sing to a life in a production seen by over 130 million people worldwide. Hotspot sits down with Fantine herself, Lindsay Heather Pierce, who shares the presence and honor of taking on such an iconic role, saying, quote, there have been so many amazing women who've played Fantine. I can only hope that I can do them justice while bringing my own spin to the role, end quote. She also promises the audience a transformative experience. To read this whole interview, get your free copy of the issue of Hotspots magazine, which is already on the stands. Well, I am glad to hear that this musical continues. I've seen it many times over the years from Broadway productions, made into a movie, and it'll be interesting to see if can attend, seeing how Broward does, pulls it off. Have you guys seen it recently?
The last time I saw Les Mis, actually, a friend of mine, Anya, who used to actually work at the Florida ACLU, she took me in Providence, Rhode Island, like 2 or 3 years ago. Wonderful when you see these productions done. Beautiful music for anyone familiar with Les Misérables. I won't comment on the plot. I might find that a dash weak, but that's not the singer than actor's fault.
It is about the French Revolution, so it's always a good idea to bring a revolution every now and then these days, don't you think?
I think so. Maybe there's something in that to look at.
I'm Alex Morash, and let's queer up South Florida. Decades before DeSantis, Charley Johns led Florida's first war on queer lives. Long before Ron DeSantis, Charley Johns terrorized queer Floridians, and now award-winning journalist and historian Robert W. Feisler is uncovering how Johns rose and ultimately fell. Feisler, known for Tinderbox, returns with a powerful new book, American Scare: Florida's Hidden Cold War on Black and Queer Lives. Using newly uncovered documents, he exposes how the Johns Committee weaponized anti-communism to prosecute black activists, queer teachers, and anyone who threatened Florida's white conservative regime. Feisler tells LGBTQ Nation, quote, "Especially today, our news cycle continuously chases its tail and fails to account for the historical background needed to understand any given headline," end quote. He explains that moments like the Upstairs Lounge fire and the Pulse tragedy reveal America's true feelings about marginalized people and why we must understand, quote, deep undercurrents, end quote, behind modern backlash. Feisler traces today's MAGA playbook, scapegoating, fear-mongering, authoritarianism, back to John's own tactics. From gerrymandering to smearing queer educators, the committee ruled through intimidation until public outrage, missteps, and unified resistance finally toppled it. The lesson: strong men fall when marginalized groups stand together. Feisler's American Scare was just named a Kirkus Best Book of 2025, cementing him as a leading voice chronicling America's unfinished civil rights battles. As Florida once again targets LGBTQ books, rainbow symbols, and queer youth, Feisler reminds us that history doesn't repeat, it rhymes loudly. You know, I think this was a wonderful book to be exploring, and also there's a long history of talking about communism and relating it to marginalized groups and queer groups, and some of that is to go after queer voices and marginalized voices. I also, as like the pinko commie that I am, point out that like a lot of the civil rights activists and leaders, many of them were part of the Communist Party, and like the Communist Party was the first group in America's political scene back in 1919 to actually go against racism and segregation. I remember the story of like there was a time that a New York City communist actually didn't want to go into the same bathhouse as a black communist, so he got expelled from the Communist Party at that time, which was radical back then, you know. So, you know, it's an important thing to look at both parts of that story.
Well, I mean, I just looked up some statistics about this so-called Johns Committee, and it is completely horrific. He committed academic censorship because, of course, he apparently tried to print a pamphlet that depicts all homosexuals as criminals. Once again, and caused firing of dozens of deans and faculty members from the University of Florida system just because he doesn't like them. And of course, attack everyone who don't agree with him as homosexual. They also try to link communism with NAACP, but they failed in that regard. The committee formally shut down in 1963, but not before multiple students were subject to things like psychiatric conditioning, because they were suspected to be gay. So basically McCarthyism in Florida, and basically evil in a nutshell, which DeSantis is repeating.
Yes, and his book also covered, while it wasn't in Florida, the upstairs lounge fire, which was in New Orleans, and that happened in June of '73, and 32 people died, 31 men and 1 woman. And after that, the Catholic Church refused to do proper burial rites. Families were embarrassed and didn't claim some of the bodies. So it was a very sad time. And it's scary to think that there are folks out there that might repeat that history anywhere in our country and the world. So it's very eye-opening. I want to get the book.
Yeah. I think about, like, in his comments about looking at how we as a society, not just LGBTQ and marginalized groups, but like how society reacted to both that fire and Pulse. Like, you know, at least from what I could see about how America reacted towards Pulse, was an outpouring of love and support of our community. So it was tragic. And it's nice to see, at least, that we did not do what was done then.
Absolutely.
I'm Bobby Hune, and let's queer up politics. New Epstein Island photos released in LGBTQ rep Garcia's push for transparency. House Democrats on the Oversight Committee have released never-before-seen photos of Little St. James, the private Caribbean island where many of Jeffrey Epstein's sexual crimes occurred. The newly unveiled images shared Wednesday include bedrooms, bathrooms, a study, walls lined with masks, and a room featuring what looks like a dentist's chair. One blackboard is scrawled with the words power, deception, plots, and political. Representative Robert Garcia called the photos a disturbing look into the world of Jeffrey Epstein and his island, adding, quote, "We are releasing these photos and videos to ensure public transparency in our investigation and to help piece together the full picture of Epstein's horrific crimes." Excuse me. The release signals that Democrats may continue publicizing new material even beyond the Department of Justice's planned December 19th publication of the Epstein files. Trump signed the bipartisan bill on November 19th directing the DOJ to release evidence seized from cameras, computers, recording devices, travel logs, employees list, and even a photo CD labeled Girl Pics Nude Book 4, end quote. But though House and Senate Democrats say more documents remain hidden, Senator Ron Wyden recently accused Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent of withholding thousands of financial records that could reveal Epstein's money trail, accomplices, and the institution that enabled his crimes. Wyden said, quote, "Bessent's not only hiding these docs, it's a lie," end quote. One thing for sure, from what I read, the Epstein's money trail is ridiculously complicated. And the truth is he handled money for many, many people, including founder of Victoria's Secret. That's gross too. And looking at the pictures, can we bring back the pictures, Steve? The house pictures. Okay, one, that picture is creepy. One thing, the mask looks like grinning old white man, and the other thing is the dentist chair is, I imagine it's not used for what it's intended to be used for. And then all the rest of the pictures are very 90s generic furniture, like, you know, if you walk into the 90s, like contemporary furniture store, you see them. That Panasonic phone belongs to a museum, but notes there's someone called Larry Cell on it. I wonder if it's Summers.
Well, that's actually what I was going to get into, is like, you know, this is so much more than just Epstein, you know. This is about how powerful men act. At the end of the day, this House of Horrors was their playground. So many of them would go to that island and abuse many, often underage women against their will because they just viewed them as property. It is absolutely disgusting. You know, Jacobin Magazine specifically did a piece about this, calling how, you know, the elites are uncancelable. You can't cancel them. And Larry Summers was the example of just look at how associated he's been with Epstein. We've seen it more and more. We knew back then he was known for saying sexist comments. He was removed as president of Harvard for sexist comments, but somehow Larry Summers keeps coming back. And all these other men that are involved. There's some guy at the White House, Donald Trump, I think his name is, supposed to be associated with this man as well, and he's still in office, for pity's sake. It's deplorable.
He has a picture with the Pope. Literally, His Holiness the Pope.
Which one?
Epstein had a picture.
No, which Pope?
I don't know. It's from the back. He looks probably John Paul II.
Wow. Do you think the Pope went to his island?
No, I think he met the Pope. Lane Maxwell, right next to him.
One of the things I saw in helping research for this story was that Senator Ron Wyden recently accused Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent of withholding thousands of financial records that could reveal Epstein's money trail. And his accomplice, the accomplice is to Epstein and the institutions that, basically enabled his crimes. And, one of the things that I found interesting was, before getting into the current role that Scott is in, of course, with the White House, is that he was part of a group that ran SFM, which is Soros Fund Management, and that was in Britain. And when the currency declined, they profited by $1 billion. So,
speculation is the trade of the elite and the ultra rich. You can't speculate on stocks on your savings.
And Larry, I think it's great that you mentioned our U.S. Treasurer, just to know that some gay men can be involved in this horror.
Oh no,
and that's just wonderful.
Unfortunately, there are people in the LGBTQ plus alphabet that are not angels, and we know that. And I think that people. That's the thing. Crime and morality across the board. There can be great people with integrity and there can be people who don't. And unfortunately, there are people in our community who don't have it sometimes.
I'm Alex Morash, and let's queer up politics. Mamdani's bold LGBTQ agenda for a safer New York. New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani is stepping into office with one of the strongest pro-LGBTQ agendas the city has ever seen, and his record backs it up. As a state representative, Mamdani helped repeal the Walking While Trans ban, co-sponsored the Gender Recognition Act, allowing legal gender changes and the X marker, and supported the state's SHIELD law protecting providers and patients of gender-affirming care. His campaign now promises a major expansion of queer protections. His platform says, quote, "Queer and trans people across the United States are facing an increasingly hostile political environment. New York City must be a refuge for LGBTQ plus people," end quote. Mamdani has pledged $65 million for healthcare centers offering gender-affirming care, vowing accountability for private hospitals that sell out young trans New Yorkers to the Trump administration. He also promises to make New York City a sanctuary city for LGBTQ plus people and recipients of gender-affirming care, ensuring local resources cannot be used to aid out-of-state prosecutions. A new Office of LGBTQIA+ Affairs would oversee non-discrimination enforcement, legal support, and more, backed by $87 million in funding for housing, mental health, trans-serving organizations, workplace programs, education, healthcare, and legal defense. Mamdani says his administration, quote, "will be committed to protecting the rights of queer and trans New Yorkers to live and thrive without the threat of persecution and bigotry," end quote. Well, there you go. Awful socialism, everybody, is coming to help queer people now. You know, I'll say a couple things on
Shakira
that.
law, Shania law or Shakira law?
Both. You know, but like when it looks to, there's a couple things on this. Like one, a lot of media has been talking about all the things outside of his core campaign promises in news outlets lately. And I say, you know, yes, it's good that a mayor obviously is with us, but like the way you get that sort of pro-LGBTQ mayor is through these mass movement candidates who are going to help people in general. Because I'm just going to be blunt with you. I've yet to meet someone who wants to feed the poor, but says, well, not for the ones with the limp wrist. You know, I don't see those types normally.
I should introduce you to the Salvation Army.
Yeah, but I think the strongest thing, and this is a very socialist, honestly, thing, is the actual having a city department that goes after issues such as if you've been discriminated, dealing with it. When I lived in Washington, D.C., we had that. Like we had the Office of the Tenant Advocate when it came to dealing with some housing issues. Wonderful. I remember when I left, I moved and I had issues canceling my gym membership, as any gay would have an issue with. The Attorney General of D.C. helped. When you have government that's willing to be much more active and not say, oh, you have to go sue on your own for it, it really helps. So that's going to be amazing.
Yeah, well, I'd like to see Mamdani be successful. I think we all do. And it's interesting, you know, if you look at what people are saying about his election, that folks on the right are saying that people on the right, you know, the red folks are going to relocate, hopefully not to Florida or South Florida. But I would love to see him be able to carry those things out. I think the one interesting thing, and I hope he can release it in a communication, is that, you know, because he has dual citizenship in Uganda, that he, you know, there were concerns expressed in an article I read that Uganda has, you know, a history of anti-gay support and rights. And I think it's great that if he can pull this off and support our community and our trans community in that way. So I wish him well.
Uganda is one of the most notoriously homophobic places on earth, and their government that's where the notorious kill the gays law came from, supported by American evangelicals, no less. But talk about neoliberalism, neo-imperialism. But I just want to point out that among the people who were tapped by Zohran Mamdani to lead mayoral transition teams is a trans rabbi, and other major LGBTQ figures in the religious world, which usually are not a very commingling space.
Well, hopefully then that'll also counteract any anti-Semitism that we're seeing from other groups outside of our, you know, communities. So that's great.
Well, it's nice to talk about the religion for a second, because Mamdani has been very honest and open about being a Muslim American. And, you know, time and time again, people always assume all these things about Muslim Americans, and I, especially like in politics and queer politics, we're like, oh, well, are they going to support our community? I'm like, the only Muslim elected officials I ever meet are always much more supportive of our community than the Christian ones. That's for sure.
Actually, some places in Michigan where there's a Muslim majority in some smaller towns, they can be quite...
The Michigan Muslim elected officials that are in the Michigan House, most of them have supported most LGBTQ legislation.
We're talking about the mayors and the town councilmen. At least one Michigan town is ruled by a Muslim-dominated city council, removed pride flags and banned books. So sometimes the religion is just a cover for homophobia. Well, there's no other, the Christian nationalist has one thing, Muslims have another. When they're conservative, they kind of behave the same way.
Well, being a former native of the greater New York City area, I wish them well. And I look forward to going up there and seeing hopefully a new New York.
I look forward to visiting New York City now.
The one other thing I'll say, you had mentioned are rich people going to leave the city. There hasn't been any evidence of it, because there's been all the signs to come to South Florida. People are forgetting South Florida is seeing the largest mass exodus based to like climate and weather in the whole country. So we're the ones that should be worried about people leaving. Not
actually,
the city.
Miami is pretty desperate. They are literally having billboards that are like, "Oh, come to Miami from New York," but that only works for like crypto bros and like people who don't understand what wealth is and how it is worth. They're like, "Oh, people move to Palm Beach." I'm like, "Oh, take a two guess why they're moving to Palm Beach."
And then they're like, "There's nothing to do," so they go to Miami or they move home.
Well, it's always a shifting geographic, right?
I'm Bobby Huhn, and let's queer up business. Grindr backs new age verification bill as LGBTQ users watch debates closely. Grindr is throwing its support behind a new age verification bill introduced by two Republicans, Senator Mike Lee of Utah and Representative John James of Michigan. In a blog post on Tuesday, the LGBTQ-focused dating app said it backs the App Store Accountability Act, or ASAA, which would create a single secure age verification process at the App Store level and allow developers to receive a verified age signal, end quote. Major tech companies, including Meta, Snap, and Twitter, also support the measure. The bill comes as other child safety proposals, especially the Kids Online Safety Act, KOSA, sparked alarm among queer advocates who say that its broad duty of care mandates would pressure platforms to suppress queer content. Critics argue KOSA would empower conservative groups like the Heritage Foundation to influence what young people can see online. Supporters of ASAA, including Grindr, argue that this narrower, standardized approach focuses on age verification without regulating speech. Grindr's head of global government affairs, Joe Hack, wrote, quote, "We invest significant resources to prevent and remove underage users. We support Representative John James's App Store Accountability Act because it strengthens this work. This approach, supported by nearly 90% of parents, is safer and more consistent," end quote. Senator Lee, who voted against the earlier version of KOSA, told The Verge that he believes it, quote, "opens the door to what could turn into political censorship," end quote. I mean, it's not a big surprise that the Heritage Foundation is planning, or many other conservative bodies, including Moms for Liberty and the administration itself, is planning to classify all LGBTQ content as adult content and therefore screen out anyone who is struggling to come out, who is struggling to identify their sexuality or gender identity, and to make sure that these people feel isolated, alone, and prone to propaganda and self-harm. That's the point. The cruelty is the point. But now, I would say not bad about the idea. Look, the App Store already know my name, my address, my credit card number. They certainly know my age. So why not use the App Store to verify age? The question is, how do you separate, for example, if a kid is buying something from the parents' App Store, how do you authenticate that who is buying it, who's using it?
That might be why all the different for-profit companies that would prefer to not block people getting on support it, because it's not. But like,
I mean, it is a problem. Some people some teenagers are using Grindr, and that's a big problem.
Well, but the other issue is like all these new attempts to really create all these age verification and restrictions on the internet is about new forms of censorship at the end of the day. Whether we're talking about it for this way, we're talking about it the other way, like. what are you going to decide what is and isn't adult content on the internet? Yeah, it's easy for something like Grindr or an adult website, but once you go anything past that, like, is Breitbart an adult website? Some people would make a very good argument that it is. I would say it's censorship to block that awful website. Is, Queer News Tonight an adult content? I wouldn't say so, but I'm sure many people would make that claim. So once you start making age verification easier, you're just going to see everything just say, oh, well, you need to be an adult to see everything.
And then you look at, authentication. You look at all the cybercrime that's out there. And no matter where you stand politically, we can all potentially be a victim of that. And, it's interesting times that we're in. You look at AI and how that's going to affect things. And, there's probably some kids out there, unfortunately, who get mommy's or daddy's credit card, or they get some kind of allowance on credit, and the parents don't do a check. And, it's...
Ultimately, the responsibility of these app behavior and online behavior comes down to the parents. The problem is that the parents seem to want to abdicate it to the legislature, who want a technological that's one size fits all solution to the problem.
Is this even coming from parents, or is this just coming from conservative Republicans who just want to be a nanny state?
No.
Both.
Well, and I'm going to say this, and you might not agree, or you might think it's coming from left field. Before all the internet and these apps, you go back and you hear the sort of the stereotypical thing. I think probably more teenage boys, but maybe looking at their dad's or Playboy magazine or something like that. And that there was no way to censor that outside of the home. And now that we have the World Wide Web or cyberspace, anything's possible. So it should be interesting to see how everything develops in the future. LGBTQ 1 Minute News. Let's queer up gay culture. TikTok's Boy Throb rallies LGBTQ viewers to help friend come to America. A TikTok collective calling themselves Boy Throb is looking to media after they hit 1 million followers, all to help their gay friend Darshan secure a visa and move from India to the U.S. The group has been posting playful pleas to their Throb mob saying, "Throb mob, can you help us get journalists' attention?" Their feel-good mission has quickly gained traction, turning a fan base into a movement powered by queer solidarity and social media love. Take note. Well, I give them credit for trying to help out their bandmate. I know that I did a little research, and it sounds like all the bandmates except their friend from India are in the LA area right now, and of course, understandable. They want him to be able to join them. So it should be interesting with all the
with the current restrictions.
Yes, thank you. The current restrictions. That's right, Bobby. To see how far they get, but it is good to see that they have the power of the generation that they've captured. And, you can only wish people well if it's for good intent. And then, maybe, Darshan will get a, visa for being an entertainer. And I know it's probably a little trickier these days, but
yeah, and also depends on what the expressed views are. I mean, these days plus the consulates now have discretion whether to let anyone queer in at all. Under the anti-DEI initiatives that gay people may no longer be allowed to even come here.
Who knows? Maybe.
But on the other hand, may I suggest, if these kids would not mind, just travel several thousand miles north to Canada, where they will probably be sure to get a better treatment in immigration-wise.
That's like telling someone in pre-World War II Europe to move to Poland. That's the first one that's going to fall. But no, I'm going to talk. I do want to talk about immigration for a second.
Canada.
I think what these boys are doing is so sweet, and it is so hard to get into the country right now. But I also want to remind people, as someone who manages staff, one of my staffers, she went for a new job a few years back, but she was an H-1B worker from India, and the amount of steps for years before Trump of how hard it is for someone from India to get into this country is absolutely insane. Our immigration is far too hostile to people coming to this country long before Trump. The issue long before Trump. And I'm just kudos to these kids.
Well, in a fantasy, one could only hope that maybe Barron Trump would be a big fan and pull some strings. But that may be a little far-fetched.
I believe that he prefers Argentinian polo. like polo players.
You
Anyway.
You never know.
LGBTQ 1 Minute News, let's queer up Black culture. Brooklyn's new Black lesbian bookstore becomes a brain-boosting haven. Gladys Books and Wine has opened in Brooklyn neighborhood, offering a rare brick-and-mortar space created for and by Black lesbians. Founder Tiffany Dockery, 37, launched the bookstore and wine bar after being laid off from Google. She said, quote, "I felt like God was saying, all right, at what point are you actually going to do something that you believe in," end quote. Dockery cashed out her 401k to step out on faith, building a space that celebrates Black women's literature and community. And, I think good for her. I hope that she does well, because lesbian bookstores were not, had their time and then they didn't go very far. So I was a little worried until I saw the "and wine." I'm like, oh, okay, she's serving booze.
There you go.
If she gets the hard liquor license, she's going to do great.
Oh, no, you don't even need that. So wine and book clubs, I mean, it comes as a thing, and especially now books are roaring back in style. I mean, there are TikTok, for example, Book Talk is insanely popular, divided into a million different genres, like gay, women who loves women, men who loves men. It's insane. I've been perusing that side of TikTok for a little while now, and people are absolutely love to read, and they want to read, and they want people to read with them. So hopefully this will become a new trend. We do need a return of the bookstore.
Well,
I mean,
yes.
we don't have enough bookstores.
Well, and I think part of what you're saying, to your point, Bobby, is that we also need to reconnect with people and not be electronic. There's such a decline in in-person relationships and relating to people. And it's a scary thought that, some younger generations don't have the social skills that maybe some of us take for granted.
We did get locked down for 2 years. Some of them are very developmental years in terms of interpersonal communication.
And for the young people that are worried about how to interact with each other in person, just ask ChatGPT on your phone.
Well,
great.
Very interesting. And I also just wanted to add one more thing. Gladys, I want to give her credit for reinventing herself in these challenging times, especially under our current administration. I think, kudos to her. It's a big step to go out and cash in a 401k and take that nest egg and reinvent yourself. But she's giving back to the community. So we wish you well.
LGBTQ 1 Minute News. Let's queer up lesbian and queer women. Sarah Paulson's Walk of Fame star shines, but her love with Holland Taylor steals the show. Sarah Paulson finally earned her place on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. There was her decade-long romance with Holland Taylor lit up LGBT social media. Fans swooned as Taylor beamed beside Paulson, holding her hand through emotional speeches. Taylor praised her partner's craft, saying, quote, "Her acting is as honest as our faith and as complicated as chemistry. She is practicing magic," end quote. Then came the line that broke the internet. Quote, "She has a permanent shining star on my street. I love you, darling," end quote. Their joy, affection, and laughter left Sapphics everywhere yearning for love just like theirs. Oh, well, first of all, I didn't even know that Sarah Paulson is queer. Seriously, I did not know. And second, having seen her performances in lots of the American Horror Story is where probably she's best known is she's fantastic. So congratulations to her and her partner. Hopefully there'll be many more years of shining stars to come.
No, Sarah Paulson is such a star. She, not only on American Horror Story, which I love her in whether she's being the Supreme or the two-headed character or whatever. She also was great at Netflix's Nurse Ratched show. She has just a great wealth of acting.
She's in the Ryan Murphy repertoire.
Yeah, and she's also just it's just wonderful to see this love story in Hollywood. How often do you hear about people actually in love in Los Angeles?
Yes, I mean, and the duration, and I think it's also a testimonial that you can have intergenerational relationships in our community that last. I have a late aunt and uncle, and there was almost a 30-year difference. And when it was announced, some of our family members were shocked, but it worked and it endured for over 25 years. And I wish them many more than that. So that's a great story and feel-good story.
And I'll just say one thing to the intergenerational stuff. To all the kids that are about to comment how that's a terrible thing. grow up a little bit before you tell two people that are grown adults, that it's not okay, because that's become such a thing on the internet now, where they always kind of like, if both people, especially when they're both over 30, like let them be.
Who gives? Yeah, never mind.
Absolutely. LGBTQ 1 Minute News. Let's queer up business. Queer-owned holiday gifts that give back to the community. This holiday season, queer shoppers are turning to community-rooted brands that celebrate identity and resilience. By queer people, for queer people, Flaunt is body-affirming streetwear for the masc, the fluid, the femme, and everyone in between. Many recall big box shopping as kids, but today, intention isn't just a virtue, it's survival, especially as some companies retreat from DEI. Community makers from Cake Wife's absolutely delicious treats to Wild Fang's gender-inclusive apparel, Transfigure's bold tees, C-Tone and Company's body positive art, Atomic Gold's ethical jewelry, and Sharp Suiting's gender-liberated tailoring offer gifts that truly reflect us. Well, I certainly support and encourage supporting our community, especially small businesses and our allies. You look at towns like the greater Fort Lauderdale and Miami areas that count on that, and I think we want to encourage small mom and pop or local businesses to do well. And remember, especially look at who's supporting who. I know in my fundraising for the West Side Association, we've had some local non-chain businesses, both owned by gay folks and non-gay folks in the community. And they're giving back for a holiday decorating contest, which is on the 8th. And I look at that and say, there is something to tying in with community. And you look at some of the big corporate sponsors who used to support our community, and
they are no more,
stepping back from DEI. So it's something that I think is important to take a look at.
Fair weather friends is what I talk about.
I love that.
To those big donors, but I love to criticize capitalism and spending all I want. But I also will say that there's a huge difference between Target pretending they're with us for a couple of bucks and an actually queer-owned company like some of these.
I was about to bring Target up because lately on social media they've been hiding who is making this stuff. So they were like, "Oh, here's the some Goodfellow and Company's shoes or something like that," but they never mention Target anymore because they want to they would still want to sell the stuff, but they don't want you to learn that you're going to buy from Target, which is kind of silly because you don't think we see the website or the sign afterwards. You're not opening anonymous stores, and also for the seasons of. Also, always buy from small businesses and especially LGBTQ plus businesses. But also bear in mind if you do not need to buy anything to donate, and you want to donate, also make sure that the bona fides are pro-LGBTQ. I do this every year. Don't donate to Salvation Army. They hate us. They want they donate to local LGBTQ charities.
What about Out of the Closet? Isn't that something people can donate to? Everyone supports Out of the Closet, right? There's nothing wrong with that one.
Absolutely.
So you just donate to Out of the Closet, everybody. It's a good place. I love going and buying stuff from there, too.
And you can window shop, too, which is fun, and get ideas. These are today's headlines from Queer News Tonight. Our anchors represent the best of our LGBT family.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Don't forget to join the conversation on your favorite streaming platform. Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
If our community is to grow and thrive, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots magazine, happening on television network, Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Larry Farver, and I thank you for joining us on behalf of my fellow LGBTQ anchors here tonight at Queer News Tonight, Alex Morash and Dr. Bobby Hune. We'll see you daily at 8 p.m. To our LGBTQ world, we wish you a good night and happy holidays.